And, is access. Learn it. Maybe love it. Maybe one of you will love it. It has, for some students, one of my children was one of them, he thought it was easier than Excel. You don't hear many people saying that. But he thought it was easier than Excel, partly because we actually don't do as much with Access. We want to expose you to it because you live in the age of information. You've already seen some of that in some of the data mining we did in Excel, downloading data from websites and then analyzing them in Excel. Access lets you do that kind of analysis way deeper and more detailed, as well as everything on the internet. Every website that has any sort of inventory has a, guess what, database behind it. Every time you go somewhere, Google search, huge database, you're searching, and so getting just a tiny bit of knowledge about databases will help you survive in the age of information. I don't expect you to be database experts, but when someone talks about tables and records and want to charge you $100,000 for a database system, you'll say, wait a minute, we did something like that in our class, and it shouldn't cost that much. Tell me again, why do you charge so much for that? And they may explain, well, it's lots of other issues. But databases Microsoft has tried to make databases friendly to the average person. And so, although they're confusing, they were much more confusing before Access came along. But Access is confusing. There are other software packages that have databases that are a little friendlier, but we don't have them in here, and it's not part of the Office 365. It's part of this textbook, and I think if you know, like I said, if you know Excel well, that will do great for you in your future work. If you know databases well, most people don't have a clue about databases. So if you at least have some knowledge of databases by doing a little bit with Access, that will put you a step up from everyone else being hired. I know right now there's you can get hired anywhere, but if you want the better paying job and want PC skills, and I just realized I might need to present this to my friends out there in the internet world. Sorry, I forgot about needing to present the screen to you. Here is my agenda. And this is being recorded as well. I'll make it available. So every website has a database behind it. Let's now get started with Access. I'm going to bring up my textbook to go through in the order they do in the textbook, although I'm excited about databases. I can jump right in and lead you through the same set of steps, but I want to be sure to go and kind of order the book. So when you go review the book, I won't have gone completely out of order. But one of the first things we do, of course, is we start up Access. And we're just going to learn about the user interface, because it is a little different from the very start. So, here we go. Access. Let's see. I think if I turn off the speaker, things will not be weird like that. All right, I'm going to start up Access. All right, just typing Access, and I see Access the app. Click on that.
What happens if you can't access Access?
Then you have to send me, if you can't get to Access, send me an email, and I will give you a secret code that gets you to a PC that has Access on it, and you can run the PC from anywhere on the internet. Connect to it with a little program called AnyDesk, a wonderful remote desktop program that's free to let you access any PC remotely. And I have it installed on about 8 machines, preparing for a lot of people that may be stuck in quarantine. I don't want you stuck without being able to use this very important program. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is start a database, but you have to be careful and watch carefully because Access is different than the others. I'm going to click Blank Database, which we're going to be starting with. Double click on that. But before clicking Create, I want to know where that database is going. With databases, it's going to create the file and it'll already be there before I ever do a save. Unlike the other programs where you start a new document and then say, oh, by the way, I need to save it now. Access, when you start, immediately wants to know and will create a file with this crazy name, Database1. We don't want that to be the name of our database. We want it to be your last name, AC1. Now, there is a way to do a file save as if you've already started one. But since we're starting from scratch, we're going to do blank database. Before clicking Create, we don't want to click there yet. We want to browse to where we're creating this file. So I'm going to click Browse, and I'm going to go put it over in my special location, my special drive with lots and lots of files over there. My Documents folder, cs101, 2021 Fall, Section 1, and I'm going to call it, I'm going to pretend to be John Smart again, Smart AC1, and that's all you need for a title. It's going to be customers and support people. We're creating a little database of, like a small business might have, for keeping track of customers. Oh, it is a. They don't give me a picture at the start of what it's about. It's going to be a veterinary supply, if I remember right. We keep track of owners and their pets, if I remember right. So you want to call it just your last name, AC1, in a folder where you know where it's being kept. Now, the type of databases, it shows you that there are multiple types of databases available. The really, really old 2000 format, slightly newer format, and now the latest format has a slightly different suffix on them. We're going to go with the default, the latest format. If you work with old data, you might have come across the old style databases. Access can read those old style databases. It'll warn you saying, I'm converting from an old style to the new one. Now I'm starting a new one, and I click OK. And now I click Create, and it will create for me a new database in that location, and then it pops me into the database table. And this is where we have to, before worrying about entering data, let's understand what we're looking at here. With databases, how they work is first we create records of information. It looks a lot like a spreadsheet, but it's like a very special kind of spreadsheet where the top line there, the top line in gray, is a very special name of that column in my table. It's like a column in a spreadsheet, but the only thing I can keep in this table is records row by row, and columns designate what the name of that column is. The name of that particular field. They're called fields. Fields are column names in our database tables. Databases keep information, and where they keep it is in tables. Now, in the textbook, they explain a little bit more about some example tables and what the data is, and then we get to the part about actually creating our own. So we open this up, and we're going to start determining what things go in our table. Every column, if I click on a column, I'll see at the top of my fields what type of thing that is. Now, they give you one to start with. They like to give you a field called ID. This is in our default table. And up here on the ribbon, the data type of what can go in that column is set to be auto-numbered. Now, we can decide what goes in this column because tables are so important to how a database works. You want to control exactly what kind of number can go into that column. Similar to Excel, where we said, hey, this column is going to be dates, or this column is numbers, this column is a chart. In tables, we have to be super careful about what kind of data can go in that field. So in this table that we're going to create, our plan is to create a table with this information. There's going to be an owner of our pet. We're creating a table of owners of our pets. So we're going to be creating the owners table. And the owner ID is going to be the first column in our table. And then the owner's first and last name, their address, city, state, zip code. So I have the information that I want to keep track of in my table, but it also has a data type attached to every field in my owner's table. Notice my data type for everything is a thing called short text. That's an easy way of saying, well, it's a very general format. I can type whatever I want in that field. We're going to limit the size of what can go in each field to a number of characters. Another thing about database tables is the structure and format of that data is very important. We don't want it to be bigger than it needs to be. So we limit the size of some of the things we can type. For example, in the state, it's making sure we can only type 2 letters for the state. That'll be the state abbreviation. We're only allowed to type 9 characters for our postal code. And some other things are limiting the size of what can be put in that particular field. So we're going to be creating our table with this information, and I'm going to show you how that's done. And as we do it, we'll learn a little bit about this user interface, trying to make databases friendly. So here's how it's done. This field right now is called ID, but I want to change that to owner ID. To do that, I can right-click on that and rename. Right-click on the gray, rename. I'm going to rename it to owner space ID. Now this is not data going into my table. It's not row 2. It's in the gray. This is the title of that column. Do not type here where the little star is. That's putting information into my table. We are controlling the header title of that table. Now if I hit enter, it automatically takes me to the next field, ready to add more information. Let's see, but before we're done though with owner ID, we want to make sure now, by default, that data type is auto number, because the data by default access thinks, oh, let's automatically number that field. We want to change that from auto number by clicking up here with that table, with that column selected. We're going to change it from auto number to short text, meaning I can type some text in here, but we want to limit the field size by editing the field size here with that selected. We're going to change the field size to 5. What we're looking at here is what they call data sheet view of my table. If I click off of that, it has set that to be short text and data type of short text, field type of 5. Now if we want to add another field, which is going to be called owner first name, I simply click to add, and the first thing it wants to know, well, what type of data goes in this column? Once we set the type of data that can go in this column, everything in that column has to be that data type. And we're going to learn about other data types like currency, a date and time, a yes or no. You can make something be a checkbox, and other fancy types. Even hyperlinks can go in a field. We're going to go with short text because that's the simplest to deal with. So we click short text, and then it highlights the field name, ready for us to give that a name. And the name I'm going to give it is owner first name. Owner first name. Be sure to spell it correctly. It does not do spell checking. And I can stretch out that field to give me a view of the entire name by clicking on the gray border between them. Be careful to only work in that top gray column don't enter any information in the record down below. We only are setting the names of columns. If you do accidentally enter data, you can always delete it. So owner first name, and let's see, the data type is short text, but we want to limit the field size. Instead of the default 255, change that to 50 in the field size. So they can't type a name longer than 50 in that column. Another term for what we're doing is we are designing or establishing the structure of our data in this table. The structure is what these fields are and what can go in them. That's the structure of our table. Because tables are so important, we want to be sure we establish the structure before we start entering records into our table. Oh, and I want to be able to see owner first name. Oh, notice when I have them both selected and I adjust it, it stretches them both out. I only want to stretch them. That one. And I want to shrink the size of that one. You can adjust your column widths very similar to Access. Now I want to add another column. Again, short text. And its name is going to be owner last name. And I can click on that, adjust the width. Let's see if double clicking on the column. Yeah, double clicking on the column border does auto fit. Anytime you want to adjust it, just click on the column and it shows you the settings for that. Owner last name. I'm going to set the field size to 50 for that as well. Establishing the structure of the data that can be entered into this table.
So first name and last name goes 50 for field size?
Yep. And I can always check by just clicking on the column and seeing what field size shows up. Owner ID is limited to 5. So click, 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 I can see the information. Now I'm going to add owner street address, making it short text, and give it the name owner, and be sure to check your spelling. You can always adjust the spelling by renaming street address. And double click on the border to auto fit. If you ever misspell, I think if you double click on the title, you can go into edit of that title name just by double clicking on it. You don't have to right click rename, you can just double click. But there is the right click rename as well. If you forgot one, I think you can insert one if you want to insert something to the left or right if you forgot something. And we're going to leave the owner street address. We're going to let them type really long addresses, so we're going to leave that one at 255 for the field size. And you can guess what's coming next. A short text. The name is going to be owner city. Hitting enter. It wants to take me to the next field, but before I go to the next field, I'm going to come back and click on this and set the city to be limited to 50 characters. And now I can come back and add the next one. Short text. His name is going to be owner state.
For owner city, you said it was
50.
Like 50?
Yeah.
What happens if they live in like one of those really weird name towns in Russia?
Oh. It will type all the way up to 50 and then won't let them type anymore. You won't be able to enter anything longer than 50. In Excel, you can say, hey, don't enter anything bigger than 50. In Access, if you have those settings set, when the people try to put more data in a different format, it will not allow them. That's another important thing about Access. You can add rules about what can be entered so you don't have corrupt data. Next one is going to, owner state, we want to make the field size to be 2 because they're going to only be allowed to enter 2 letters, should represent the abbreviation for their state. Whenever you go to websites and you register on websites with your username, city, state, they are putting that information. Once you go register, that information is going into that website's database, into some table somewhere, and whenever you want to log in, it looks up the information in that database. Databases, besides making you keep your data very organized by forcing these rules about the data, they are a way of accessing the data super fast. And it's amazing how fast you can get millions of results from Google's database when you search for a thing. Okay, another thing, another short text, is going to be owner postal code. Hitting enter, come back to it. To adjust its field size is going to be limited to 9. Not just the 5, we're allowing the extended postal codes. And because it's short text, it's allowing letters and numbers like the Canadian zip codes. Next one is going to be another short text. This is going to be home phone. Home phone. Come back and click on it. It's limited to a length of 25. Remember, if you ever misspell, just double click and you can adjust the spelling. I'm also going to double click on the header border so I can see the full title.
Is it just home phone?
Yeah.
Okay. And you said 25?
Yeah. 25. And there's 2 more. There's a mobile phone and email. So mobile phone is going to be short text. Mobile phone. Enter, come back and click on it. Set its length to be 25. And last one, I come back here and click to add, is going to be short text, email, address. Email, address. I like shorter names without spaces, but in the book they're giving us names with spaces and long, so we'll go with what way they have. Emails can get really long, but they would like to limit emails to 50 characters. Now I have the structure of my table established. I'm using the Fields tab. As I select on them, it shows me the information about each field. And I can click on each one of them to confirm, do I have the right links? It has not yet saved the table inside the database. So although the database file was created at the very start, tables are like a file within the database. Very special type of data called a table. And I need to save this table by doing a Control S. I'm going to do a save. Now it's asking me, it's not saving the file, it's saving the table inside of my database. And I want to make sure if it's called owner or owner plural. Because plural or singular will mess up later on. So I want to make sure once I've saved changes, make changes, save, and it's so small in the textbook I can hardly read their name. Yeah, it is owners. Owners plural. They decided to call it owners plural. I like the name owner singular, but they want to put plural. So we want to make sure we get that right. Yeah, owners plural. So table name owners with a capital O. You can rename it if you ever need to. And it shows up here then in my Access Objects as an owners table. No records yet in my owners table, only the structure of my table. Now I want to show you something. If I ever want to verify that I have everything right.
It says I can't rename it while it's open.
Right, yeah. There are things about Access databases, because they're so special, if I have the table open, I can't come over here and give it a rename. Yeah, I can close it though. By clicking the little upper right X, I can close the owners table. It's still listed there. It's just like think of it as a kind of a file system within a file. A table, when it's closed, I can right-click rename it if I don't have the right name. And it lets me edit the name. I can open it to see what structure I have by double-clicking on it in the navigator. Double-click my owners table, and now I see my structure. Now, a very quick way to view the structure in a maybe a handier way. Remember, I can click on each field, click on the design or the tab for fields, and see all its settings one at a time. Or I can click on the little triangle pencil ruler, and if I hover over that, I'll see that that triangle pencil ruler, if I click on the little arrowy thing, I see that means take me to design view. So I can click on the little triangle. Now I see all my table's fields, what they are, and if I click on them, I see the field size showing up down below in the properties section. I can double click my tab just so I can get a little more room to see. In the design view, I have all my field names and what data type they have, and if I click on each one, down in the property field, the property area, I'll see the owner, city, field size show up down in the properties. And there's lots more properties I can mess with in design view. They take you to datasheet view first because it looks a little friendlier. You have the ribbon across here in the field section. But in the design view, you have a little more power over what can be put into that record and in that column number. So design view, to switch between them, I can click on datasheet view, click on design view, toggles me between design or datasheet view. We have not yet entered any information about owners. This is the general structure of about every database out there on the internet. Some have less structure than others. Some that are keeping track of your messages on Facebook, for example, they have a less structured table. But we're approaching this from the classic, here's what tables are in Access and in most databases, very clearly structured before we start putting data into them. Because the data is the treasure of our database, we want to make sure we have some design and some rules about what can go in each column. If I made something instead of short text, if I made it a number, if they tried to type letters in that field, it would say, sorry, I only take numbers here. Like when you want to say, how many do I want to order of this product? You try to type A, the website would say, sorry, that's an invalid entry. As we collect data, we want to make sure we're collecting it in the right format. Now let's see, now that we've created this one table, going through the whole setup of naming our columns one at a time, we're now going to enter some data. I think they want us to enter data here. Let me get to change some things. We've saved it. And are we entering data yet? I can view the table. It has nothing in it yet. We go to design view and see the structure of it. Now we're going to add some information to our table. We only know about 2 owners so far. Here's the information we have about our 2 owners. We're going to be entering that into our table. And that I'll be doing that right now and then. I have that table over here. And to enter data, in datasheet view is the easiest way. I enter my owner ID, capital O-1. Immediately when I start typing in a record, it pops the little star guide down to the next row. Say, okay, if you want to start something new again, you can start typing here and I'll have another record. I have now started creating my first record, and just like in Excel, I can use arrow keys or tab, I think will take me left and right in that record. The information I'm entering, and I'm going to shrink a few things down here just so you can see the full data here. I'm shrinking my navigation pane. I'm going to shrink my column to be so you can see only the data that's needed there. The first owner's name is Ted, first name, and I can always come back and, just like in Excel, edit the information in that column. The last name is Sabas. You don't have to worry about adjusting your column name. I'm just shrinking them so you can see everything as I type it. Street address is 460 West Pioneer Road. Just like in Excel, if I enter something wrong, I can come back and edit it. State of CO. Now remember how this one had a limit of 2 characters? If I type CO and I keep typing, it will stop. It won't let me type anything more than CO. Now it's not verifying that I've entered a valid state prefix. That's something I can do in fancier rules about my table. And in the postal code 81323. Now remember, this is short text, so I can enter numbers and letters. It doesn't complain. So I could be entering invalid postal codes, and it wouldn't complain.
Okay.
Home phone, I'm going to be entering 719 with a dash, 231 dash 4411. Fake numbers, just for examples.
I'm going to try it now.
719 888 7735. And email address, since it's going to be a little longer, I'm going to stretch that column out a little bit and enter the email address tsavus@sendgate.com. Advertising their company a little bit. Now, just to make it visible to you, nicely separated, I can adjust my columns. So very much like a spreadsheet, once you have established the name of your columns, and I could even add another column just for fun to say what would have happened if it were a number, and I'll call it test num just for fun. And now if I go to test num, if I try to enter ABC, it doesn't complain yet, but if I try to leave that cell, it'll say, wait a minute, you can't enter ABC, a number has to go here. Now it doesn't give you very friendly error messages sometimes, and that's something we can fix. But that's an example of if I had a number instead of short text. With short text, I can type anything. And if I put that column in and I'm done with it, notice it's not letting me go until I fix the problem. But I can delete, I can't even delete that until I fix the problem. So I have to do either Control-Z or erase what I'm typing. And now it's happy with me going away from that. And I can come back and say, wait a minute, I didn't want that field. I can delete that field. That was just there for testing. With Access, when you do some things that you can't Control-Z undo, it will usually give you a warning that do you really want to do this? If you do this, there is no way back. So we'll talk about backing up databases. Okay, so we've entered one owner. Now there is one more owner, O-2. Our second owner in this owners table. I'm hitting tab as I go to each field. Stephen Nguyen 9874 South Main Street. Now if I type more than what will fit, I think it automatically, oh no, it doesn't automatically wrap. It just kind of slides to the right. It doesn't wrap until I hit enter. Then I think it will wrap if it's a real long name. Or no, actually, I think it just gets hidden. If the column gets too narrow, it just hides it. Double click to auto fit to all the data. And the owner city is Blanding. State is Utah. And zip code 845. Make up some phone numbers just for example data in my table. Right now there are no rules about the data, so it's letting me type anything, and it could even have spelling errors.
What's up with the home phone?
Oh, I missed a number. I missed a 3 in between the 4 and the 5.
So we're coming off the random numbers for these?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Right.
There are no rules being applied. We're going to learn that we can actually apply validation rules, they call them. Like, would catch typos like that. Would say, wait a minute, your phone number is, I should either see 8 or 11 characters. Go back and check it. You can actually force them and make sure that they have typed the dashes. That's all some validation rules that we can apply. We're just going to enter data at the start here, and little by little we'll learn more about what we can do with databases. Now, because I have been adjusting the column width just to make it easier to read for you, as I save this table, it will say, do you want to, or if I close the table, it will say, do you want to save changes? And I'll say yes. I can always come back and open that table. If I don't adjust the column width and say I change the spelling of something, and I close it, it doesn't ask me to save changes. Saving or changing the data in a table, it'll do that without asking you to save it. It automatically becomes new data in the table. If I ever adjust a column or something, then it'll ask me, oh, did you want to keep that change? But changing the data in the record, you go to close it, there is no, are you sure, or do you want to save first? It's automatically changed as soon as you leave the cell. It's automatically a change made. Now there is an undo. Say if I give it the wrong name here and go to another cell, but I Control Z, it will remember some of the changes. So Control Z is your friend, and is there an undo? Oh, there's an undo way up there. So if I make a change, see how the undo shows that yes, there's an undo available. Sometimes if you get an error, that's really confusing, because sometimes Access has really scary, confusing errors. Try the undo, and it will often fix the problem that you had. Other times, it's more confusing. So we want to carefully enter the right data. I can close the table. It always shows up there in my list of objects inside my database. So there you have created your first table. Again, let's just go back over to that, what we saw. Remember, if I click on the top column and I go to the Fields tab, I can see the properties of what goes into that column. We're going to be adjusting that a little bit because we're running out of room sometimes. In the owner ID over here, it's really hard to read that whole thing. But I can actually go up here and change the name and caption of that. I can have it be named owner ID, but the caption when I view the table, I can call that O_ID. And I can even give it a description. And ID number assigned to owners. I can edit the name and caption, and watch what happens when I click OK. Now I see OID as the caption at the top of the table. Still, that field name is still owner ID. So name and caption lets you edit that, how it's going to be displayed when I view the table, but what its actual name is his name in the field properties. So just a little bit of exploring here what this fields ribbon does. It controls what can be entered in each column. And as I click on the column, I see what data it is expecting to go into that column as I enter data into my tables. Remember, tables are the foundation of all databases. The data stored in a database becomes the treasure, and that's what gets searched through when I start searching and processing the information in a database. Databases are for holding millions of records of data about your company or about your inventory. The purpose of the database is to organize it in a very controlled way so you don't lose track of things, and to be able to look up things very quickly from the millions of records of data. If it were just 10 things, you could easily have that in an Excel spreadsheet. But imagine keeping your inventory in an Excel spreadsheet, and as that inventory grew, searching through an Excel spreadsheet, doing the Control F, find something, works pretty good for somebody looking at it, but look for a computer program to try to go find information from your Excel spreadsheet. Gets very messy. Databases make it easy for a computer program to go search through the database and find information very quickly, to do inventory, to display the website inventory online so people see the picture. All that comes from back-end databases. And you can actually use them for organizing your own stuff. Often people use Excel more because it's a little more user-friendly. But using a database, there's some powerful things you can do with databases that you can't easily do with Excel. Let's see if they mention it. I think this is a good place to stop. We'll be entering another table next time, and let's see if sometimes you can bring in information from an Excel spreadsheet. You can turn it right into a table without having to retype the structure. You can enter or import data, and it will create a table for you as you import data, just like we did importing data into our Excel spreadsheets from other locations. So this is your first start, your first database, bringing in or establishing, creating a table from scratch, and then entering records one line at a time. Each line here, if I click on the gray on the left, each row in my table is a record. We call that a record. Each column is a field, and the field has, in the gray, that is the title or the name of the data in that column. And as I click on each column, I can establish the rules. In this case, we're only controlling how long it can be. The data type, very general data type called short text. So close the table, save any changes. You can close the database. It will automatically have made any changes. And have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rennick.
You are very welcome. I will upload this recording